Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Nickel City Mafia channel, where we talk all things Buffalo and then some. Today, I'm super excited. We're going to be talking about the AFC Contenders. Who are those contenders that our Bills have to worry about this year? Joining me, I'm Mike Thornton, by the way, as you should know by now. Joining me is my best friend of 36 years, Troy Gregory. Good morning, Troy. Thank you so much for getting up early and joining me. It's great to see you.
Good good morning. 36 years, really? Has it really been that long?
36,
Seems like only
I know,
yesterday.
36 years. Troy and I mean, it's funny. We met at a sporting goods store. Troy was my boss. I just came out to California and had to get a part-time job. Got this job at this great place called Sport Mart, which is no longer available, but it was like a kid store for those that were into sports, and that's what attracted us there. So it was so much fun. Um, Troy was my manager at that time, and we've stayed friends forever. I mean, we've traveled back and forth across the country a few times, and yet we've remained friends and always found a way to stay in touch. Now we're back here on the West Coast. Troy, you want to say
And
something?
and we did it all without FaceTime or
Oh,
anything like
I know.
that.
It was the old,
Dialing up on the
it was the
telephone.
old telephone, right? It'd have been so much easier with the technology we have today.
Absolutely.
So Troy, thanks again. You and I mean, way back, even in our Sport Mart days, we were into fantasy football. I think we were into fantasy football when it first came out. It was just, I mean, I remember a guy, I can't remember his name, but in our warehouse, he had this little magazine that came out talking about this fantasy football
Yes.
thing. And we got that going, and we've been in fantasy football forever.
And it was so weird because we'd have to wait. We didn't have the results of everything instantaneously. We'd have to wait until Monday or Tuesday with the USA Today
Oh, yes.
newspaper came out and to look for all the stats and figure out who actually scored enough points to win for that particular week. So it's not like today where we have all the stats immediately available to us.
Yeah, I remember that. I'd go get some breakfast, get my USA Today, and look at those stats. And I actually appreciated that part of it because it made you do a little more research.
Yeah.
Nowadays, everything's right there in front of you. There's no, I don't have an edge over you anymore, Troy, because everything's real time and it's right there for us. It tells us who we should be picking up.
I remember we used to go to the sports bar and we used to talk about, man, it'd be so cool if we could just pull up all the stats on all the teams because you couldn't see what was going on with other than the television that you were looking at. You would hear a crowd cheer over off to the side and you'd be wondering, well, what's going on over there? So we'd have to rush over there and look at the TV and see who had made the play. Whereas today, obviously, we can pull it up on our phone or on an iPad, even take a laptop into the sports bar if you wanted to. And but I think mostly today people are just doing it on their phones, which is fantastic. We wish we would have had that during that time.
Yeah, I remember feeling like I was cheating the first time the internet came around and I was able to get these stats like after the games. I remember going on the internet and like, oh my God, I can now go get these stats immediately, which is crazy. I don't remember what year it was, but it was a turning point for sure.
You finally were once those stats started coming out, you were finally able to start beating me in fantasy football, whereas before you never did.
I don't know. I've had a lot of success in fantasy football, but so has Troy. I've always been the Bronx Bombers, and he likes this name called what Toronto Bandits is your
Toronto Bandits, who
Toronto
actually made
Bandits.
an appearance in one of your other broadcasts earlier this year.
Yeah, yeah, that was a slip up when I was trying to talk about the Toronto Blue Jays and the Buffalo Bandits.
And the Toronto Bandits came out.
So Troy, the only flaw that Troy has, you can obviously see it on screen right now, a little bit of it. He's a Dolphin fan. Please don't hold that against him. I don't know how we've been able to survive and be friends as long as
Us
we
the
have,
Dolphins.
but we have a lot of fun every season. And lately I've had the better of it, so that's a good thing. But there have been plenty of years where actually it's been a while since the Dolphins had the edge. A lot of times we'll split during the season, but lately it's been Buffalo, so I usually get the better of the smack talk between the two of us.
Yeah, I try to stay away from the telephone during the Buffalo Bills Dolphins games.
Hey,
It's better that way.
yeah, I hear you. I'm just welcoming my dad just joined the channel. Said good morning. So good morning, Dad.
Hey, Bill, how's it going?
he and I are going to be doing some Saber talk at the end of this month, so I'm looking forward to that as well. So Troy, let's kind of get into what we're going to be talking about today. So this was me coming up with the top 8 teams. Now I know only 7 teams make the playoffs in the AFC, but I wanted to throw 8 out there, and I'm going to rank them. Troy has not really have an idea of how I'm going to rank these things, so he's going to give me his opinion as we go through these teams, and I'm sure there'll be some controversies. I'm sure I'll upset some folks, but again, these are just these are just my opinions, and I would love to get your guys' thoughts as well in the channel, or even if you watch this after the fact, post those comments, and we'll get right back to you. So Troy, any thoughts before we get into this?
No, I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be an interesting season for sure. I think there's a bunch of teams that are up and coming that we haven't in recent years traditionally been able to talk about. So it's going to be an exciting season.
Yeah, I totally agree. One thing, Troy, I'm going to let you know, and if you've watched my previous streams, I show a lot of slides, and one of the critiques I've had is, hey, we'd like to see you and your guest a little bit more. Now, you and I both were a model years back, so we're going to give the people what they want today, right? We're going to let them see.
I still model. I still have some modeling contracts out there, and I know everybody is just loving seeing this right
I know,
here.
right? Same thing here. But we are going to have our slides, but we're going to try something a little different. We're going to try to just stay on those slides for a little bit, come back to the camera quite often, and get thoughts and comments and stuff like that. So at this point, let's get into it. Troy, right off the bat, I feel I need to, spoiler alert, I need to let everyone in on something. And that is that the Steelers are not going to make my top 8. Now, let me bring up a quick slide, Troy, real quick. I want to show you how the season ended. We're going to bring that up real quick. Now, as you can see, the Steelers were 12-4 last year when the season ended. We had the Ravens at 11-5 and the Browns at 11-5. And people must be thinking to myself, are you crazy? They were the third best team in the league. What are you thinking, Mike? What are you smoking? So let me show you some of the reasons I think, Troy, that they're not going to make the top 8, and then you can kind of tell me your thoughts on it as well. So bringing up the slide right now, why no Steelers in my top 8? Look at the schedule. They have the hardest schedule in the league. Look at those final 5 games that they got to finish with. Baltimore, Minnesota, Tennessee, Kansas City, Cleveland, Baltimore, and then look who they open up against, the Buffalo Bills. So
Yeah, when Mike Tomlin sees this video today and he sees that you're not putting the Steelers in to the playoffs, he is going to get his troops going against the Buffalo Bills, and the Bills are just really going to have a tough game to start the season. Just because you said that here in this video, because I know Mike Tomlin is going to watch this.
absolutely, as all coaches should be watching this. I mean, and getting some information about the other opponents that they have to face during the year. So other reasons, they had some key losses, and I had that up on the slide. But then another reason, Troy, is I just feel there's an aging Roethlisberger. He's getting up there in age.
Absolutely.
I watched a few of his games last year. They got off to an amazing start. I think it was 11-0, something crazy. It looked like they might go undefeated, and then they struggled down the stretch. And when I watched a few of their games, Roethlisberger, his arm is shot. Now, unless he finds the fountain of youth in the offseason, I just think the trend's going to continue downward for that team. So that's why.
Yeah, I definitely feel that they'd have to rely more on the run, and I don't know that they have that in their arsenal anymore. They're going to have to rely on short passes because I don't think he's going to really be able to consistently go downfield. And their schedule is tough. I mean, they got rolled in the playoffs. I mean, it was just ugly. I mean, after the start that they had, I mean, they looked like they were going to go to the Super Bowl, and then the wheels just completely fell off.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, let me bring up the slide one more time. So on the right there, you can see the playoffs where they opened up against Cleveland, and Cleveland had a huge lead on them. This score wasn't even as close as it was,
Yeah,
48
no.
37. So, again, that is why I'm sorry, Pittsburgh fans. That's why they don't make my top eight. If you disagree, which I'm sure you do, if you're a Steeler fan, you're like, you got to be kidding me, Mike. I mean, they were 12-4 last year, but I think with a few key losses, they had their center of many years. Their starting center just retired this year. That's a key piece to your offensive line. They had a Bud Dupree, outside linebacker. Also, they let him go. So that's
You have to look at the division that they're playing in too. I mean, it's an extremely tough division.
yeah, totally agree. So, all right, enough about the Steelers. Let's get into the top eight here. And at number eight for me, this might be a little bit of a shock for some people. It's the it's the Chargers. I'm gonna bring them up real quick. The Los Angeles Chargers, folks. Here they are. I think they're at number eight, and I'll tell you some reasons on that. They finished the season at 7-9. And by the way, folks, as you most of you should know, this year they're going from 16 games to 17 games. So they started the season 7-9. Justin Herbert was able to get the starting job once Tyrod Taylor was injured, and he just took it and ran from there. They have he's been phenomenal. Now they had a couple key losses. They lost their tight end Hunter Henry and their safety Rashawn Jenkins, but they've made some really improvements along the offensive line, and they brought in tight end Jared Cook, who I think is just a temporary fill for Hunter Henry. They got him on a 1 year deal, but they made some great draft picks as well. So all my slides are going to show the draft picks and some of the key losses. And when I say the key losses and gains, that's free agency. That's either people they obtained through free agency, or that they've lost, or they just let go. They didn't re-sign at all. What's your thoughts on the Chargers, Troy?
The Chargers are definitely an up and coming team and deserve to be in that kind of bubble spot, as I would call it. Justin Herbert is definitely going to be a stud in this league. He's already proven that he is. They've got a great receiving core with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams at wideout, and then of course Jared Cook as the tight end. So offensively, they've definitely got parts in place to make a run at the playoffs.
Yeah, the only thing that worries me a little bit is their defense. They've got
Mhm.
some young guys. I think let me see here. Let me go back real quick. Let's take a look at who they drafted. They did draft a cornerback. They did draft an edge rusher who was basically 18th ranked in that overall position of edge rushers. By the way, when you're looking at my slides, guys, when I present these, those numbers in green over on the right are basically how they were ranked within their position for the draft. And again, this is just a couple boards that I pulled these off of. These were the average numbers here. So that's what those numbers on the right are.
I'm noticing too, is talking about their receiving core. They also picked up a wide receiver out of Tennessee, Josh. I'm sorry, I didn't see that name there. Josh Palmer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really familiar with them, but they did give him a grade of an A there. So that could be another piece that they have in that wide receiver core.
Yeah, I mean the experts. I don't know anything about them either, but the experts seem to like him as well. So let's see here. Let's move on to. So yeah. So you agree with me there? Sounds like you're in agreement with me on the
Yeah,
bubble.
yeah, I definitely think they deserve that little bubble position. They are definitely an up and coming team, and they do have the potential to get there. I mean, depending on what happens on with the teams in front of them, they definitely have the potential to possibly make a playoff spot if one of the teams above them doesn't quite end up with the season that they're expecting.
Yeah, some folks might think I'm being a little biased because I'm out here on the West Coast, and maybe I am. I mean, from the Bills, after the Bills, it's all about Buffalo Bills for me. Troy knows this, but
Oh my
if
God.
the Bills are out
You
of
gotta
it,
be kidding.
I always like to root for a West Coast team right now, and that's the Chargers. So again, I don't want. I did a lot of research. I do feel they deserve the bubble spot, and maybe I'm being a little biased, but I know Troy isn't. So
it was for me. It was between, and that bubble spot was between the Chargers and the Buffalo Bills. So I'm just saying.
Buffalo Bills. Oh my gosh, you're gonna get discredited as knowing anything about football, Troy, if you keep making comments like that. Especially if any of the Bills
uh,
Mafia is
I'm
watching.
actually kidding.
All right, Troy. Let's move on to number 7 in my rankings, and that is the Colts. And I mean, they had a big notable loss in the offseason with Philip Rivers retiring, right? And
Yeah.
they lost left tackle Anthony Costanzo. He retired. They lost their backup quarterback Jacoby Brissett, who actually went to the Dolphins. And but a couple notable gains is Carson Wentz. They had an offensive tackle Eric Fisher, who was an 8-year KC vet, and then they also put a guard. They signed a guard, Chris Reed, who started 14 games in Carolina. So if you look real quick over on the draft side as well, they drafted an offensive lineman with their first pick. It was number 2 overall rated for that position. They went cornerback, so they are focusing on the defensive side, and then Josh Palmer. You know what? I might have brought up a. You had mentioned Josh Palmer before. Did I bring up the wrong slide for you, Troy? Let me see here.
Oh, you know what? It's weird because you're on, as you look at the number as the Indianapolis Colts, all the
Yeah,
draft picks you have on their team say this the Charger ones. So
yeah, you're right. So that's a little bit of a technical glitch from me here. Let me see if I can correct that real quick. So go ahead, Troy, and talk a little bit while I get that corrected.
yeah, Philip Rivers, him retiring is going to be a loss for the Indianapolis Colts, although he was in his, obviously in the latter years of his career and, wasn't as good as he was early on. Um, Picking up Carson Wentz could be a good thing depending on how healthy Carson can remain and how he fits into their system. Um, it's going to be challenging to see how well he does. I mean, so Indianapolis is one of these teams that talked about with the Chargers that if one of the teams above them doesn't stick to what is predicted for them, that the Chargers could move up. And this Indianapolis is one of those teams where we really don't know. They look good on paper, but you just don't know what's going to happen with those new pieces in place.
Yeah, are we getting the old Carson Wentz, or are we getting the
Right,
one that we saw in the last couple of years who really struggled? I mean,
right,
he's had
right.
injury issues already as well. I wasn't able to
Hmm.
correct that. My fault, everyone. I apologize for not having the right draft picks there for the Colts. So
You were focusing on Buffalo.
it is. I always focus on Buffalo. Yeah. So yes, easy mistake to make. But yeah, there they are, number 7, and again, they're gonna uh, they're gonna ride and die with Carson Wentz, and that's the big question, as Troy was mentioning. So you good with the number 7, Troy? You see
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Colts
I'm
there?
good. I'm good. And I'm noticing there that your dad is saying that he would actually put the Colts on the bubble and have the Chargers in front of them. I'm assuming.
Yes. Yeah, he with the Colts on the bubble or lower. He might. He's saying that they might not even be on the top 8. So
Yeah, which is a possibility too. It all comes down to the play of Carson Wentz and how he fits into their system, I think. I mean, their wide receiving core, as I look at this, they still have T.Y. Hilton, who is, he's a good receiver, but he's again becoming a little bit older. Michael Pittman Jr. and Paris Campbell, who I don't really know a lot about.
right. But they have a strong running game, and they'll depend on that a lot.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so I think they'll be fine again with Carson Wentz. Now Carson Wentz, I believe, is reunited with, if I'm correct here. Let me check my facts. He's being reunited where he had a lot of success. Was that Frank Reich? I want to say. Let's see who's the coach of the Colts right now. Yeah, Frank Reich, who's guess what, Buffalo Bill. So he's reunited with a former Buffalo Bill, and I think he had early success in his career with Frank Reich as well. So that might spark things again for him, get him back to where he was.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. All right, moving on here. Let's go to number six. And Troy, I didn't do this for you. People are gonna think I did, but believe it or not, I got this. I got your Dolphins in at number six.
And I think that's actually a good choice. And again, as with the Colts, a lot of it is going to come down to the play of their quarterback. I mean, Tua, he's in his second year, and I mean, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. They've lost Fitzpatrick, who's gone to, I believe, Washington. So Tua is the guy this year. He's not going to have Fitzpatrick to lean on. The Dolphins did pick up Jacoby Brissett, and so they do have a backup there for him. But how well the Dolphins do is going to depend on how well Tua is able to develop as a quarterback in their system. He has some great receivers in his arsenal. They drafted Jalen Waddle in the first round, wide receiver out of Alabama. He is a Tariq Hill type player, very explosive. And I'm not saying he's going to have the same success as Hill has out there in Kansas City, but he is that type of player. They also still have, what's his name? I'm drawing a blank here.
Devontae Parker
At the wide receiving core. Devontae Parker, yeah, Devontae Parker, and they picked up William Fuller, who is a great receiver. Has suffered some injuries, but hopefully that'll add to their arsenal. And a great tight end as well. Fuller is suspended for the first game of the season. He's finishing off a suspension that he had previously at the end of last year.
Yep, it was a 6-game suspension, I believe, and he's got one more game to serve on that.
Yeah.
They also, Troy, they also drafted Jalen Phillips, a edge rusher, who
Yes.
he was ranked number 3 on a lot of the experts' boards, but he came in on pro day and just blew everyone away. He ended up being the number 1
Yeah.
edge rusher taken. And a funny story about him, in 2020, he started for Miami, right? College of Miami.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Buffalo, who took Gregory Rousseau with their first pick, Rousseau was also a star in Miami. However, he sat out 2020. He opted out during the pandemic, and that's where Jalen Phillips came over and got the starting position and became a stud. Now I think he's had some concussion issues, so there's a little concern there. But I mean, that guy's, if he stays healthy, he's going to be a stud for you guys. And your defense was already great.
Yeah. The defense is really good. They have Xavier Howard at cornerback, who's a legit lockdown cornerback, and opposite him, Byron Jones, who's also a really good corner. So their defense is strong, and so they're going to be able to keep the point total down, hopefully, for the most part, and hopefully with Tua, in his second year, hopefully everything will click and they'll have a great season. But again, as with the Colts and the Chargers, it all comes down to they if Tua just has a horrible season, then the Dolphins just won't make it. I mean, they just won't. So it all comes down to the play of Tua.
Yeah, I mean, we saw last year. We saw times where he was brilliant. And then there were times he just wasn't getting it done. And I think that might have been the offensive plan there. I think they were just being super conservative with him. And then
They were.
And then Fitzpatrick would have to come in out of the bullpen like baseball and relieve him, which I don't know if that was great for Tua's confidence level as well.
Part of the thing with Tua was he was coming off of the injury. I think it was a hip injury that he had at Alabama in his last season. And I just lost my camera. So he had to they were being very conservative with him because of the injuries that he suffered at Alabama.
Gotcha. Now, you might have mentioned this, Troy. Did Waddle and Tua, they have a former relationship? They play together?
Yes, they did, and he was his go-to guy. So that's going to be a very, very big key for them.
Gotcha. So
I got to make a quick battery change.
no worries, no worries. So they were already a strong team. They were 10-6 last year. They were right there to make the playoffs. If they would have won their last game or last couple games or gotten some help, it could have easily been in the playoffs. So that's why I put him at 6, not because of my buddy Troy. And I'm surprised that he agreed with me at 6. But, as I went through and I looked down as I was doing this research here, they really needed to be in the 6th spot. And again, it really comes down um, to his play. So Troy's making a little change there. I am going to move on. There we go. Got your camera back. So at the number 5 spot, everyone, let me do this real quick. At the number 5 spot for me is the Titans. Now they had some notable losses in the offseason. Tight end Jonnu Smith, young guy, 41 receptions for them last year, 8 touchdowns. They lost Jadeveon Clowney, who actually has had a pretty good career. So on that defensive line, and they lost Corey Davis, 65 receptions last year, 5 touchdowns. Another young guy who I believe. I mean, all right, I know what they were probably thinking. They were letting these guys go, but these are young guys who are stars for them, and I think could be stars long term in the NFL. And but then they shocked everyone and made the move of the year and getting Julio Jones. So and
Yeah,
right,
the I'm super excited about the Titans this year. Do really well. Tannehill, of course, was the Miami Dolphins quarterback for quite a few years before he moved on. And the problem, and I'm kind of disappointed that he's not with Miami anymore because and he was always a good quarterback in Miami. The problem he had there was they went through a lot of coaching. They were going through a lot of coaching changes at the time, and so he didn't really get the full benefits that he could have had there in Miami. And he's a fantastic quarterback.
I disagree with you a little bit there. I was never a fan of Tannehill, maybe because I'm always rooting against them when he was on the
Hmm.
Dolphins. And maybe, like you said, he just didn't have all the pieces there in Miami. He does have all the pieces now. They have an amazing running game with Derrick Henry there. And then
Hmm.
now you have A.J. Brown and Julio Jones.
Julio
Julio
Jones.
Jones. Now, Julio Jones is coming off he was injury stricken last year and coming off his lowest receptions for a year in quite some
Yeah,
time. He is getting up there in age and he
he
has
is.
some injury issues over the years. But I don't know, Troy, talk to me about, losing those two guys that I talked about. Jonnu Smith, tight end, guy was super quick. He had some injury issues, but he was young. I mean, to me, he was one of the best tight ends in the league once you get past those upper tier. And 41 receptions, 8 touchdowns for them last year. And then Corey Davis, another young kid that they had for a few years. And again, they might have been thinking we got to let these guys go because we can't afford to keep them and keep Jones. But do you think that was a good move for them long term?
Long term, I don't know. We'll know a lot more once the season starts. That's for sure. I mean, there are some question marks, with their offense. I think probably at the tight end position, but overall, I mean, they're going to be an exciting team to watch. That's for sure. And
Yeah.
if you're of the old school, love the running game, there's no better team than the Tennessee Titans.
Oh, yeah. I mean, for sure. Now they lost, Clowney, who's
Hmm.
he's had a pretty good career, but they picked up from the Steelers Bud Dupree, and Bud Dupree had 8 sacks in 2020 and 11 and a half sacks in 2019. So
Yeah, big pickup.
yeah, so I think they're filling that spot by losing Clowney. So anyhow, they got an experienced quarterback, great running game, amazing receiving duo. Again, if their defense can step up, because they were,
Hmm.
they didn't have, they weren't putting a lot of pressure on quarterbacks last year, and whether they improve or not to do that, I'm not sure. But to me, it all depends on their defense. If their defense is,
What helped their defense out a lot was their running game. I mean, the
yeah,
fact that they were just running the ball and ball control, so the other teams would not have the ball a lot. So that helped their defense out a lot.
yeah, for sure. Running attacks always help keep the other team off the field. But we'll see if their defense takes it up another notch. I mean, look out. And if Julio can stay healthy, that's a big
Mhm.
if.
Yeah.
They're going to be a tough matchup for anybody. So that's why I have him at number five. You agree with him at number five?
Yeah, I do. I do. Definitely a solid number five there.
Okay. All right, Troy. Let's move on to number four. Now we're
So
getting.
far, we haven't disagreed on
I
any of
know.
these.
I'm shocked here. I'm actually
Well,
was.
that's coming.
I'm the most shocked. I'm the most shocked about the Dolphins. Right, that we didn't disagree on those.
Well, I mean, hey,
You're
it is what
realistic.
it is, right?
So
Yeah.
yeah, I like that. Appreciate that, sir. All right, let's move on to number four, and it's my son's favorite team, the Baltimore
Oh.
Ravens.
How did that happen,
I'm
Mike?
gonna tell you a funny story about how my son, he's 8 years old, and how these teams become his favorite. Lamar Jackson on the Madden game on the Xbox is a stud. No one can stop him. So guess what? Lamar
Yep.
Jackson has become his favorite player, and his Ravens. He's got a jersey. I got to take him to a game last year to see the Rams. So last year or the year before, it was probably the year before. Getting it mixed up, I think with the pandemic, it was not last year. But I got to take him to a game to see the Ravens play the Rams, and they just blew the Rams away. So it was great. He loves the Ravens. I have talked him into the Bills being his number two team. So we're making progress there because the Bills used to be third and fourth, but we moved
Yeah.
up to number two, and he's starting to see Josh Allen become a star. And but it's all about Lamar Jackson for him. And as you can see, they had some notable losses. Mark Ingram, they lost their guard, their center. He basically lost his starting job anyhow, but they had good depth there at that position. They lost a couple linebackers, and a defensive end. The notable gains, and I don't know, I don't really think these are notable gains. Sammy Watkins, who was a Buffalo Bill and had some good years in Buffalo, went to KC, and he was injured. He's got a lot of injury issues, and again, he was always playing third fiddle to Hill and Kelsey over there in KC. And then they did pick up a guard who's Kevin Zeitler, sorry, who's a great player. So
Hmm.
I have concerns about them losing. They were one of the top defensive units last year, and to have lost three players to free agency on that side of the ball, it's a little concerning.
Yeah, definitely. Sammy Watkins, yeah, like you said, he's an okay player. Lamar Jackson, of course, is the leading rusher for Baltimore, and that could be problematic. I mean, he's great, but you never really want your quarterback to be running that much. So hopefully he can remain healthy.
Yeah, I mean they have really good tight ends. They really needed to add to the receiving core. That's why I think they went after Sammy. Again,
Yeah,
Sammy, it really isn't that old of a player. He's just been banged up a lot, and he has potential. It will definitely help them. Looking at the
yeah, they don't really have any big name receivers.
right, they did go after Rashad Bateman. Actually, they didn't just go after. They drafted Rashad Bateman, wide receiver from Minnesota. He was ranked number 5 amongst receivers. So good play, good draft there.
Hmm.
Again, to get Lamar more weapons. They already have that tight end locked in, and now these additional ads on receivers just going to give Lamar more opportunity to throw the ball, and like you said, maybe not have to run as much. They
Right.
drafted a guy rated number 5 at the edge position, Jason Owe, and then they made another receiver, Tylen Wallace, down in the 4th round, and he was the 10th ranked wide receiver overall. So you can kind of see where their heads at. Let's get some weapons for
Yeah.
Lamar.
Yes. Absolutely.
So number 4, you good with that?
Number four, I'm okay with number four too.
Here's where I think we're gonna start.
before also.
Here's where I think we're gonna
Yeah.
get into a little bit of a disagreement here,
Yeah, probably.
and I'm gonna tell you right up front, I did, even though I'm a huge Bills fan. Mm, well, I'll wait for that to talk about that a little bit. At number three, coming at number three for me are the Browns. I mean, all the experts have pretty much elevated the Browns to the number two ranked team in the AFC. They've made a lot of good moves. They're starting to, the pieces are coming together.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's look at some of them there. They lost defensive end Olivier Vernon. They lost the defensive tackle Sheldon Richardson, but they were the ones that signed Clowney. They also picked up Malik Jackson from Philadelphia, and then a cornerback Troy Hill coming from the Rams. And they picked up a couple players from the Rams, and then John Johnson coming from the Rams as well. On the draft side, they went after cornerback. They went after linebacker. Again, if you see on the slide there, Greg Newsome, cornerback, he was the fifth ranked overall cornerback. Jeremiah Awusu, Koromoa, probably butchered that, number two at the linebacker spot. And then again, they also added to their offensive line. So, what's your thoughts on that, Troy?
Uh, th- I am big on the Browns. I mean, Baker Mayfield is definitely coming into his own. I always knew he was going to be a great player coming out of Oklahoma, which I am a huge, huge Oklahoma fan, if you know me. So I'm a big Baker Mayfield fan. Wide receiving core: Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry, a former Dolphin, I might add. So a great receiving core. Odell needs to get his stuff together, but if he can pull himself together and actually start meshing with Baker Mayfield a little bit more, they could be very, very potent.
Yeah, totally agree. I think Odell was a little banged up last year, and Baker made that next. Um, that
Hmm.
next jump in his career. I think he was just starting to be. He's always been a good leader, right? And what is it?
Oh yeah.
What's one of the reasons you're a fan of Oklahoma?
Well, personally, I mean, my father and grandparents were from Oklahoma, so I spent a lot of time there as a kid, even though we didn't really live there. I actually started my college uh, at the University of Oklahoma, so that was, I've always been an Oklahoma fan, and ever since, as long as I've been a Dolphins fan, I've been an Oklahoma Sooners fan. Sooners have had much better success.
Well, you bring up a good point there. Talk to me about how you became a Dolphin fan. Was I know you spent some time in Florida, but talking to you in the past, that wasn't the real reason.
No, no. Having lived in Florida, I didn't live in Miami, but having lived in Florida had no effect on me becoming a Dolphins fan at all. I think what it came down to was when I was 6 and 7, the Dolphins were in their heyday of success. It was during the Larry Zonka, Bob Greasy years. They were going to the Super Bowl every year, and I think as a young, 6, 7 year old, I picked up on that, and so they became, my team. And a similar thing happened with my son, my oldest son. He became, as much as I tried to make him a Dolphins fan, he sadly became a Seattle Seahawks fan. And it just so happens that the year when he actually started watching the football games, Seattle ended up going to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl that year. So now he's a Seattle Seahawks fan, much to my chagrin.
What was it that got him on the Seahawks?
Well, it was funny because we were the very first game that he watched. It was a Monday night game. It was Seattle against Green Bay, and he started rooting for Seattle in that game, and my other son Dylan started rooting for Green Bay. So they had this thing going against each other. Seattle won that game, and so from that point on, the rest of the season, he followed. He was a Seahawks fan, and then the Seahawks ended up winning the Super Bowl. I said, "Don't get used to it, man. That's not going to happen
Yeah,
every year.
that's
It's
rare.
just not going to happen."
Yeah. Totally, totally agree there. I know how that is. My little boy is, I love it. My 8-year-old is so into sports, but he's at that age where
Yeah.
when this team loses, it's painful for him. He sheds some
Yes.
tears, and it breaks
Yes.
my heart. But I'm super happy that he's in the sports, and he'll sit down with
Yeah.
dad and watch these
You
games.
get you get used to losing and it hurts less. It starts to hurt less. I
You
don't
remember,
cry anywhere near as much as I used to.
Troy, when the Bills lost those 4 straight Super Bowls, I was still young, and it was painful, so painful. When the Bills used to
It
lose,
wasn't painful for
I
me. I
know,
enjoyed every
I'm
minute
sure
of
you
it.
did, but it was painful. I was still a young, in my 20s, and I used to need a few hours to kind of recuperate when the Bills lost. After the fourth time losing, I was like, you know what am I doing? It's just a game. I still love the game. It still hurts when they lose, but I don't need those couple hours to recoup. Now my little boy,
when I
he does.
when I was at Oklahoma and we would lose a game, the year that I was there wasn't their best season. Although we were ranked number one for part of the year, and then we lost to we had a game against USC. We were ranked number one. USC was ranked number two. We lost to USC, and the depression that went over campus was unbelievable. Nobody smiled. It was just you could just feel the depression in the air. It was just amazing that how much that team is really embedded into everybody.
Yeah. I see in the channel here my dad saying, being a Bills fan and a Sabres fan my whole life, I had to learn how to deal with losing.
For sure.
It's so true. We've had so many heartbreaks. We're waiting for that first championship. We're hopeful that we'll see it in our lifetimes. And who knows, with the Sabres, we got some work to do. But with the Bills, we're kind of like we got a possibility at the very
You know who
at
has
least.
won Super Bowls?
Yes, yes, yes.
The Miami Dolphins.
Yes. Troy, you'll appreciate this. I got to see Bob Greasy play. So he played in a
Yeah.
game, and I think it was 1980 that I got to go to in Buffalo, and that was when the Dolphins had that what was it, 20-game winning streak against the Bills over 10 years, over a decade, and I was there
Uh,
when the Bills broke that jinx, as I call it, or that losing streak. It was a great time. But the fact that I was there to see Bob Greasy, and I look back at these
yeah.
guys that I was able to see, it was like, damn, that was pretty cool. I got to see Bob Greasy.
Yeah. I believe it or not, I've only been to one Miami Dolphins game. One. I went and watched them play the Chargers a few years ago in what we thought was going to be the Chargers' last game at what was the stadium that they played in down Qualcomm.
Yeah.
We thought it was going to be their last game there because they were talking about moving out of San Diego then, and so we went down to the game there, and they kicked our butts. And then it ended up not being the last game that they played in that stadium. But I know that had them fired up was the fact that they it was going to be their last game, and so
Yeah.
that was not a good day.
So, I mean, Troy, I know you may disagree with my third pick when I start talking about my second pick, but I'll give reasons for my second pick. All the experts, like I said, if you go out there and Google AFC top contenders, whatever, all the experts have already crowned Cleveland as that number two spot. And yes, they look amazing on paper. They had a good run last year. They almost beat KC, but remember, Mahomes went out in that game, and that turned the game around at that point,
Yeah, true,
right?
true.
So everyone's ready to crown him. I'm not. I mean, how many times have we seen teams that look fantastic on paper, and they just don't produce? They don't gel as a
Yeah,
team.
like Buffalo has in the past.
Whatever. Well, true. I mean, they just didn't get to their
I
full
didn't say
potential.
this year. I said in the
Yeah, in the
past.
past, for sure. All right. Well, so at my number two spot, of course, are the Bills. Now, some folks, Bills Mafia, I'm part of that group. Don't get upset with me. I just don't think we're there yet to jump over Kansas City. And I'll tell you some reasons for that. Kansas City played us twice last year, and I thought they handled us pretty easily. They made us going into the playoffs. Buffalo was looking fantastic. We were looking fast on defense. When we got to that championship game, they just showed us otherwise. We were lacking in putting any type of defensive pressure on Mahomes, and we were just we look slow. We look slow, and I wasn't so happy in their draft picks this year. I did a stream a few I don't know, a few weeks back, and where I went over all the draft picks. So you take a look at that if you get a chance. But we went first round. We picked Gregory Rousseau, who I talked about. He's an edge rusher coming from Miami. He opted out of the 2020 season. He uh, he played 2019, and that's really his only experience. He had a fantastic year. I could see why they're taking a chance on him, but they're gambling here for sure. And then Boogie Basham, Carlos Basham Jr. I love the name. He goes by the nickname Boogie Basham. I guess he got that as a kid. He used to dance, and his family gave him that name. But I think he's going to have the bigger impact to start the season than Rousseau will. And if it was me, I would have went at number one. I would have took Boogie, and number two, I would have went after a running back. I think the Bills, the last two seasons, we spent a first round pick on a defensive end last year, Espinoza, who really hasn't panned out yet either. So we're taking these shots on all these guys, and yet these key spots, tight end and running back, where I don't think we're solid enough there yet. They should have been making moves in those particular places. Now, we lost Andre Roberts, who is basically an all-pro kickoff return guy. We lost our wide receiver, John Brown, who had some good years with Buffalo, but injuries last year, and with the signing of Stephon Diggs, he was let go and moved on. We lost the tight end Tyler Croft. We did pick up wide receiver Emmanuel Sanders, but to me, I mean, come on, Emmanuel Sanders is getting up there in age as well. He did okay for New Orleans. When he was asked to fill a primary role, to me, he didn't step up. So yes, he'll be a great addition as a third receiver on the team, and he brings leadership. But I mean, if you're expecting this to get you over the hump to beat teams like Kansas City, I don't think that's going to happen. Matt Breida, kind of a journeyman. They brought him as a running back. They picked up a defensive tackle. They signed Mitch Trubisky from Chicago, the quarterback there, as their backup, which, a lot of people are like, what, are you crazy? But he's another guy, Troy, like Tannehill, who I don't think had all the pieces in Chicago. Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah.
But again, let's hope Josh Allen stays healthy and we don't ever have to worry about that. And then they picked up a tight end. I already talked about who they drafted in their first two picks. The most notable ones for me, again, are Boogie Basham. And then there's this guy they got in the sixth round, is Marquez Stevenson. He's a wide receiver. He was the 19th rated overall wide receiver. And I think he's going to help fill that void on the kickoff returns. This dude is super fast, Troy. He's got the build of Tyreek Hill. I think he's like I don't know, he's 5'10", 180, same build as Tyreek Hill. And dude, I've watched some film on him, and oh my God, he can get to 0 to 60 in 2 steps. I mean, he's at full speed, and he's gone. So I think he'll make an impact this year, and I talked about that when I streamed.
Yeah, I think he's probably a better better fit for Buffalo than even Emmanuel Sanders is. I mean, if you think about it, Emmanuel Sanders was playing with Drew Brees, and if you can't do extremely well with Drew Brees as your quarterback, then you're probably at the tail end of your career.
Yeah, exactly.
which I think he is.
No.
I mean, he's a definitely serviceable wide receiver, but I do feel that Marquez Stevenson is going to be another one of these lightning in a bottle type players.
Yeah, exactly. So I see him playing slot, doing some of those what do they call it? Those sweeps that they like to do with the running backs, or sorry, the wide receivers these days. Those trick plays. And again, we lost Andre Roberts, which was a huge void. I think he's going to fill that. So super excited about his potential.
It'll be interesting to see both Miami and Buffalo with those type of players. Marquez Stevenson for Buffalo and Waddle for Miami. Both similar type players.
Yeah. So like I said, Troy, I was super disappointed. If we would have went defensive end first, I was okay with that, or edge rusher as they're calling them these days. I was okay with that. I would have gone with Boogie Basham as number one. At number two, there were still some very good running backs on the board. I believe the Bills, I mean, we could have had a nice power running back who also has speed, because that seems to be the key these days. You know, you want a strong running back. Last year, we split time. We got Singletary, Zach Moss. Now we've added Breida. This splitting time was not successful for the Bills, and you would think with a amazing passing game that they have that the running game would be successful. But I can't tell you how many times it was 3rd and 1, 3rd and short, and we got stuffed.
Did Josh Allen lead the team in rushing?
You know, that's a good point. I don't have that statistic. I want to say he was up there. I want to say he was up there for sure. And it was, having to rely on Josh. Josh's a big guy. 3rd and 1, he can just fall over the line and typically get
Yeah.
those first downs. But anytime we went to the running backs, we failed miserably. And again, I think a team that, when a defense has to focus on your receiving game, your running game should be able to take advantage of that, and we didn't. So I think we missed out, and that's why I have it at number 2. I haven't bumped them ahead of the Chiefs. But what's your thoughts between the number 3 and number 2 picks that I have on this list there?
Um, it's a toss up for me. I definitely probably would have put Cleveland in that number 2 spot. Just because I feel a little bit more comfortable with their offensive core. Um, but going number 2 with Buffalo is not a horrible thing, I guess. As much as it pains me to say that, and I'm just, I don't know. I'm gonna have to go wash my mouth out with soap after saying that.
Cleveland. Have the receiving core. They have the quarterback. I still believe.
Yeah,
I mean, Baker and Josh were drafted in the same year,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
still believe Josh is the better quarterback. I think we got the better of the two, even though Baker was taken number 1 overall. I know you might disagree a little bit, but based on the evolution of those guys, I think Josh being like as tall as he is, as big as he is, as fast as he is. And now he's the thing on him that everyone was concerned about was his accuracy. Well, let me tell you,
hmm
when Jim Kelly was started with the Bills, his accuracy, that was the knock on him as well. And look what happened with Jim. So I think
yeah,
Josh Allen is the better of the two, just because of his size, his speed. He gives you everything. Baker turned the corner last year. And again, you could say Josh Allen turned the corner last year as well. So they're both turning the corner at the right time. They have an amazing
yeah,
running game. So you're right. I give them the edge on the running game, and receiving game. I give us the slight edge only because of Allen, but they have all the weapons as well on the receiving side of things. And defense, their defense is pretty strong as well. And that's where we need to up our game. If Buffalo
I
doesn't,
think Baker Mayfield in the long run will probably be a better quarterback than Josh Allen. I do think Josh Allen might have a little bit of an edge right now, but long term, I think Baker Mayfield is probably going to be longer lasting than Josh Allen.
you might get some hate mail on that, Troy, and you might get some threats from the Bills Mafia. I couldn't disagree with you more. So I'm tired of seeing those Baker Mayfield commercials just because he was the number 1 draft.
Hey, those are the best commercials ever.
They're
I'll tell you.
okay, but
Welcome to my house.
yeah, I'd rather see Josh Allen in those commercials. So I'm tired of those, and I don't agree with you. I think Josh
You think
Allen.
Josh Allen should be playing in Cleveland? Is that
No,
what you're
I
saying?
think he's the better of the two, and I think he'll have a better career long term.
I guess time will tell, right? Time will tell.
Yeah, but again, they do have a complete team. But to me, like I said, Troy, first of all, they have a tough schedule. I think they're. Let me go back to them real quick. Browns. They have their strength of schedule. They have the ninth toughest in the league. The Bills
Yeah.
have the 23rd. They have a. I don't know how the scheduling gods did this, where they really penalized the Steelers and Buffalo got a good draw. We have a pretty easy schedule considering 23rd overall, tied for 23.
Yeah.
So that's another reason. And again, I'm not going to give anyone, these experts are saying it, but until you show me that you can do it, I'm not going to put you over the Bills, who made it to the AFC Championship and who I still see making the AFC
Did the
Championship.
Bills play Cleveland this year?
Let's look that up real quick if one of us can while we move on to the next. Let me see here real quick. Let me bring that up. I don't think they do. I know they play. I know they play Pittsburgh out of the gate. Let's see here.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Play the Chiefs again. So again, we're gonna learn real quick. Well, not real quick. It's in October where we play the Chiefs. Um, we do not play Cleveland.
That would be an interesting game.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll meet in the playoffs. There's a good chance of that.
Yeah.
All right, and then there's that leaves the number one spot, which everyone knows by now is going to be
The Dolphins.
the Dolphins, right? The Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, again, they pretty much, to me, again, they handled the Bills pretty easily last year. I hate to say that, but I was so disappointed in how we showed up against them. You know, everyone's talking how Cleveland almost beat him. Again, Mahomes got injured late in that game. That
Yes.
wouldn't have happened.
Yes.
They obviously went to the Super Bowl and got destroyed by um, Tampa
Tampa Bay.
Bay. And you can see here, based on the losses during free agency and the gains, dude, they've revamped their offensive line completely. Mahomes was under pressure so much, not only in that game, but in games prior, that they let go of their Eric Fisher, their starting left tackle, their right tackle. Um, you know, they lost Sammy Watkins. I don't think that's a big notable loss for them, but I put it on there. It was one of their few. But look at the notable gains. Orlando Brown traded from Baltimore. Offensive guard Kyle Long recently coming out of retirement. He's had a few Pro Bowl years. They brought on center Austin Blythe, who was the starter with the Rams for the past 3 seasons. So they've completely overhauled their offensive line in order to fix that problem. And I mean, look at that. I think they got
That could be scary.
exactly.
That
Exactly.
could be. I mean, they're already scary. Can you imagine if they got even better?
Yeah, and then even in the draft, they went after an offensive lineman in their second round pick. He was the number 10th offensive lineman rated based on people's boards, and they went off some defense. So where they've always had a middle of the road, maybe slightly above average defense, and the one knock on them last year was their offensive line wasn't giving Mahomes the protection. Now Mahomes is that type of guy who can get away from danger, but you could see it wore on him towards the end of the year. He was dinged up. He got knocked out of the game in against Cleveland. He definitely was hobbled. He played Buffalo. He looked pretty healthy. Again, they had a great game plan and pretty much picked the Bills apart. But in the Super Bowl, you can really see where that line let him down. He was under pressure the whole game. Even though he was throwing balls, while he was horizontal to the ground, and
Yeah.
if a couple of those plays are made by the receivers who dropped them, it could have been a different game. He's that type.
Yeah.
He's that type of guy, but it was wearing on him. He was getting, having to run, and he was getting a little dinged up.
So do you know who his backup is?
I don't at the moment.
Chad Henne.
Chad Henne, the guy that.
I didn't even realize he was still in the league.
Yeah.
I thought he retired years ago.
I should have known that because that's who came in, and there was a big, I think it was 3rd and 15 in a playoff game against the Browns, and the Browns were, just ready to take over that game, and he made the play. I forget what it was, whether it was a run or a pass, but he got the first down, and the rest is history. The Browns weren't able to complete the comeback there. So I think we were pretty much in agreement with most of the top 8, Troy, other than
Yeah, absolutely. And the one little disagreement, is it could go either way.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts, Troy?
No, other than it's going to be an exciting season. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing the Bills fail, and a big test week 2. I mean, you got Pittsburgh week 1, then you got Miami week 2.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be a fun game. My phone will be turned off on that day.
I'll
Just
find
so you
you.
know.
The Bills Mafia. We have eyes all over the place, Troy. We will find you. and we will rub it in your face when again. Although again, Dolphins always play the Bills tough. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
no matter if the Bills are bad or if the Dolphins are bad, those interdivision games are always tough, and those two teams
Yeah.
have had a
Although
rivalry.
I don't think we did very well against you last
No,
year.
no. I mean, the
I,
first game I think was pretty close, and not the second game though.
yeah.
But again, over the years, it's always been pretty good games. So I
Yeah.
expect that to continue, especially with the improvement that the Dolphins have made. And we'll see, like you said, week two, we'll know pretty quickly all about that. So my closing thoughts again. Thanks, Troy. Appreciate you joining me. It was a lot of fun. Uh,
Yeah, definitely.
we
We'll have to do it again when Miami beats
we
Buffalo.
got to yeah, right. We got to figure out when we can the fantasy football situation this year. I know both of us have
Yes.
been super busy. We kind of got out of it the last couple of years, but it's time to get back into it.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've done fantasy
It's
football.
been something we've done for so many years. We actually ran a few of our own leagues, which was always
Hmm.
great. Remember those days where we'd get everyone together and trade, I'm sorry, and draft at either my house
Yes.
or someone else's house. Now everybody's doing them online, but it was still so cool to get people together and do those
Yeah, no, it's
drafts.
much more fun to do it together than it is to actually do it online. I'd much rather do it in person.
Yeah. All right. Well, again, thank you, Troy, for the Nickel City Mafia group here.
You bet. Bet.
We're going to be talking about the Sabres in the upcoming weeks, so keep an eye out for that. So, Troy, you have a great weekend, and thanks again. And
You too, man.
everybody else, have a great one. Happy 4th to all of you.